Doors should be simple. You've got a hole, either in the front of your house or in a piece of furniture. So you get a piece of wood, you cut it to the right size, you put hinges on it, and you hang it in that opening. That should be good. And it would be, except that wood moves, and sometimes it moves a lot. This is high-quality, kiln-dried oak. It was perfectly flat when I bought it, and it is not flat anymore. It's already started to cup quite a bit. If I just hang this unsupported in a piece of furniture, it's going to do all kinds of things over the years, and none of those things are going to be good. If we want to build high-quality doors for our furniture projects, we need a design that's going to minimize the warp and bow that you get with changes in temperature and humidity. We need something that's going to be sturdy and attractive, and we need a design that we can do quickly and efficiently. Because around here, we like to get our projects done, and we're going to do all of that stuff in today's video. Oh, this is Woodwork for Humans, and this is part 3 of our kitchen cupboard build. I almost forgot to mention that. If you're building traditional fine furniture, your doors are probably going to be in this frame and panel style. The main part of the door is this solid wood panel in the middle, and it's sitting in this hardwood framework around it. It's not glued in, and you can see that there's room for the panel to move around. It's floating in the frame. The idea is that this central panel is going to expand and contract with the seasons, but that movement can be absorbed into the space in the framework, and the overall size of the door isn't going to change very much. Now, that central panel is also going to want to cup and twist over the years, but it's captured in the frame, which is going to hold it flat. That means the whole door is also going to stay flat. It's going to fit in its opening, and it should open and close smoothly, even over years and years of use. Now, this is a brilliant design. It's attractive, it's effective, and it's durable, but it's also pretty difficult to make. Even if you do this with power tools, which is how I made this one, you're still looking at a lot of setup and execution to make these. If you want to do them with hand tools, that is some advanced skills and some specialized tools. Luckily, we're building our cupboard in an early American style, and we can look to the country furniture tradition to find a type of door that's just as sturdy as these, but a lot easier to make. Last week, we made our face frame and fitted it to the cabinet. This week, we're going to measure the actual door openings and be sure to leave our stock oversized, so we have lots of room for fitting the final doors. I picked the best wood I could find, but this is still big box pine, so I'm marking and cutting around the biggest knots and flaws to end up with clear wood. This is another reason to buy more than you need. You always find things you don't like once the wood is back home. As you're cutting the big door panels, you can get a cleaner cut by leaning on the waist with your elbow and using your left hand to grip the stock. As you get close to the end of the cut, slow down and saw gently while your other hand supports the work. My cut is neat, and that little splinter on the corner came from the waist side, so I can just nip it off. Each of your doors is going to be made from 2 large panels, edge glued together, so we need to stop and analyze the grain. Wood tends to cup in the direction of the growth rings that I'm tracing here. Imagine it like those curves are going to try and flatten themselves out over time. So if we have both curves going in the same direction, that wood movement is going to be exaggerated. Instead, we want to flip one panel so that movement is more equalized over the whole door. Or, to make it simpler, if your grain looks like frowny face, that's bad. If your grain looks like frowny face, smiley face, that's good. When you have the grain directions running opposite and the best faces together, draw a big cabinet maker's triangle over the whole thing. Then you don't have to worry about finding that orientation again while you're building. Now we're going to joint our panels and edge glue them. And right about now, some of my viewers are saying, yes, joint the panels and edge glue them. Maybe we could have a little refresher on those skills. No problem. Fold your pieces up like a book and put the inside edges up. You can see me letting the pieces balance on the bench top to get them really parallel. I'm going to do this joint 2 ways. One way for people who have one long clamp, and one way for people who have no clamps at all. If you don't have any big clamps, then you're going to want a plain, jointed edge. I like to color my edges with pencil, and plane with a finely set tool. Grip the edge of the plane like I'm doing here, to keep the center of the iron over the middle of the boards. We're aiming for a very square edge, but jointing the boards together will cancel out inaccuracies. The edges will be a mirror image of each other. So if one board is a little high on one side, the other will be a little low. You might notice that I'm not checking to see if the whole edge is straight. The way you do that is to put your jointed edges together like this. I'm using my triangle to make sure they're set up correctly, and then I'm going to look at the joint and try to see if there's any light coming through. If there is, then I need to joint them again. I don't see any light, so I'm also checking them with the edge of my big shop-made square. We want the two boards to make one flat panel, and if they're straight and there's no light in the joint, we're ready to glue up. Spread your glue evenly, and don't use too much, just enough to cover the joint. You can see I've got battens screwed down to my bench top, and I'm just tapping in some hardwood wedges for clamping pressure. You don't need a ton of force, so don't go crazy. The pressure from the wedges might shift your joint a bit, but a piece of scrap and a mallet will get those edges flush again. Then you just put something heavy in the middle and let it dry. We'll do the second door with the single clamp method. Instead of jointing the whole edge, I'm going to concentrate my planing in the middle and gradually lengthen my strokes until I take one stroke over the whole edge. What I'm doing here is called a sprung joint. I'm intentionally planing the middle of the board a little bit hollow. So when I stack these two boards together, they're going to be touching at either end, but they're not going to be touching in the middle here. So when I apply pressure with one clamp in the center, these edges will already be touching and the center won't be. I'll be increasing the pressure slowly until these two center boards meet. Now I've got that spring in the joint, and that's going to create a ton of compressive force, and that's going to put a lot of even pressure throughout the entire joint, even though I'm only using a single clamp in the middle. This is a traditional technique back from when clamps were kind of rare and expensive in woodworking shops. And these days, clamps are still sort of expensive. So if you only have one, this trick will get you by. Apply your glue to the joint and put on some weights. That will keep the middle from jumping up as you apply pressure with the clamp. Watch the joint carefully as you tighten the clamp. You should see the glue squeeze out at the edges first, because those points should already be touching. As you tighten the clamp, you'll see the squeeze out in the middle of the joint. This is why we didn't go too heavy with the glue. The squeeze out tells us when the joint is together. Give your panels an hour or two to dry, and then you can test fit them. Get your panel into one corner of the opening and mark the places where it overhangs. Now right now you might be saying, "Oh my God, Rex, my door openings aren't square." Yeah, well, neither are mine. Just make your doors to fit the openings and nobody will ever notice. My traditional joiner's bench has a big leg vise and aprons for holding just this kind of big panel. You can build your own bench in about 2 days, and I've got videos and plans to show you how. The links are in the description. For trimming this panel, my Ryoba saw is perfect. It has fine teeth, so I can get close to my line and the cut is clean. I still need to plane that cross-grain cut, and planing end grain can be tricky because you can easily splinter the ends of the board. To prevent this, use a sharp plane and work in from either edge toward the middle until you get down to your line. To finish the edge, I'm using this old transitional plane. It was made by the Gauge Company. I'm really just throwing this in for fun and because I enjoy old tools. It's a good tool, but it's not like incredible or anything. Don't run out and pay collector prices for one of these. I paid 30 bucks for this one, and that's about right. It's a good tool, but it's not amazing. Once both the doors are fitted, you can pop them in the frame and get an idea of what the finished piece is going to look like. Honestly, it's going to look pretty damn good. Right now, those doors are fitting perfectly, but they're going to bow and cup as soon as the weather changes. To keep them flat, we're going to make simple battens and screw them across the backs of the doors. This is a fast and effective solution, and you see it a lot in period furniture. I'm just making 4 narrow pieces of stock. They should reach almost to the edges of the doors, so that tells you how long to make them. For comfort and looks, I want big bevels on those battens, so I've marked out lines 3/8 of an inch off every edge. I'll plane those bevels in the end grain first, and I'm not worried about a little splintering on the corner, because I'm going to plane the side bevels next, and that's going to take off any splintered wood. With a sharp plane, this goes really quickly, and I've got my 4 braces made in no time. It's a big advantage to this country furniture style. It's fast. Once the battens are on, it'll be really hard to sand or plane the insides of my doors, so I'm going to set up my bench for large panel work and do that final surface right now. I've sharpened my plane and set the iron very fine, and my little gauge plane is taking some very nice wide shavings. And honestly, the surface it's leaving is... wow! Did I say this plane wasn't that great? Because honestly, it's Kind of great. Okay, let's get these battens done and finish this part of the project. I only have short wood screws, so I'm doing a deep counterbore here with a 3/8 spade bit and then drilling the clearance hole. Get your batten on your door and then hold it steady while you poke through all the holes with an awl. Give it a good twist and firm pressure, and you'll have enough of a hole to get the screw started in the door panel. If you own an impact driver, go ahead and don't use it on this. That tool has too much torque for this soft wood, and I promise you'll break something. Instead, load that driver bit into your brace. You'll get more than enough power to drive the fasteners, but the feedback will tell you when you're done. Learn to use this tool and you will never strip a screw again. Oh, and we're only using screws and no glue here to allow for a bit of wood movement. The fasteners have enough flex to move and still keep things together. With the doors built, you can fit them to your piece and put cardboard shims on 3 sides. The hinge side should be pretty flush, and it doesn't need a shim. Measure about 1.25 inches down from the top of the door, and use your square to strike a line across the door and the frame. Then use that line as a reference to place your hinge and score around it with your knife. Set a gauge to the thickness of your hinge and run that line down the face of the frame. Then you can use a chisel to chop between your lines and come in from the side to pare out your waist. You may need to do this twice before you can drop your chisel into your gauge line and pare to the final depth. Use your hinge to check the mortise. You want it sitting exactly flush. It's the same thing over at the bench where I'm cutting the hinge mortises on the doors. I'm more careful with these because the inside edges of the door might get seen sometimes. But I'm just trying to get a flush fit, just like I was on the frame. I hang the doors by putting a little blocking under the door while I hold the hinge in place and run in my screws. I just started these holes with an awl, but it would have been better to drill. These little screws need an easy start. With the hinges installed, my doors are hanging very straight and they swing just fine, but you can see them pop open a little bit when I push them closed. Turns out my door stock is a tiny bit thicker than my face frame stock, and my doors are hitting the center shelf, back near the hinges. That's not a big deal. I can just pare a little material off the shelf with a wide chisel. Things like this are always happening when you hand make something out of random wood. You'll need to make adjustments. Don't worry about it. It doesn't make you a bad woodworker. To finish up, I'm just going to carve some poles. I'm making these out of oak because pine just won't be strong enough, and I'm painting this thing anyway, so no one will notice. I'm not going into a lot of detail here because it's honestly a lot of trouble to go through. You can just buy some little poles at the hardware store, but making your own is an option too. My wife found a picture of these and really liked them, but if I didn't have a client for this build, I would have just screwed some store-bought ones and finished a few hours faster. Installing them is easy, but I am making sure the screws penetrate deeply into the poles. That's going to give them a lot of support and keep them solid over the years. I've also installed some little magnets on the inside of the case, and they hold the doors shut. I'll link to them down in the description, along with all the other tools and materials in this build. The pulls and the magnets really finish off the project, and I've got a set of doors that will be flat and sturdy for years. My doors might not be super fancy, but they're sturdy, they're appropriate to the style, and they're going to stay flat over the years. Best of all, I was able to build them in about a day, and you can too, because this style isn't very difficult and doesn't require any specialized tools. Now, my cupboard is finished, and I'm really happy with it so far, but it does look a little bit too plain. I can fix that by adding some simple decorative moldings, and next week I'm going to show you how to cut a bunch of different moldings with no router, no molding planes, and actually not any new tools at all. We're going to cut several really lovely profiles only using the tools we already have in our basic Woodwork for Humans kit. It's going to be fantastic. And I should mention, just like I always do, that none of these videos would be possible without my patrons on Patreon. They provide the support that lets me make these videos and give them away for free. If you'd like to be part of the amazing community of craftspeople that makes this work possible, go on over to patreon.com/RexKruger and check out the early access and rewards that I have just for the people who make this stuff possible. And if you're enjoying this build, come on back in 2 weeks for part 4, where I'm going to dress up the whole thing with fancy homemade moldings, and you're going to see it put into its final home. I'm really looking forward to seeing you. Thanks so much for watching.